Hey everyone, I just want to welcome you to our Prime Health Cast. We have decided to do a podcast every week now, and we will be putting it on YouTube for you guys to watch. And I'm Rianne, the CEO of the company, and I basically run everything in the company. Okay, we have David here for our first podcast, and he's going to have tea with us. So we're going to talk about his experience here and what he's going to get done and everything.
Yeah, it's been quite interesting because I've been to Turkey multiple times. I love coming here. Just the service when you come here is just unlike anywhere else. But I think more than just that, it was quite. I mean, last time when I came over, I had my hair transplant, so that was in October, and me and my mate came over, and we flew in and we got picked up at the airport. It was a bit difficult to find out where the taxi driver was and all of that. But in the end, we got there. And then we got to the hotel and we didn't get told anything. And it was just a bit like in a bit of a limbo, like what's going on, which, you know, in the end, it all worked out fine. And the service was great once we got to the clinic. But I think the fact that they didn't really speak English, there was a little bit of a language barrier there. That kind of does cause a bit of uncertainty with some people, which is quite normal, especially when you're coming from a country like the UK, where, as we know, English people, they just speak English because they think, well,
everyone speaks it.
Yeah, everyone is. And again, like, I'm kind of guilty of that sometimes because we went to Istanbul to get some food and we were both like, oh, they don't speak English here. And it's like, well, yeah, no shit, it's Turkey. It's like, you can't expect people to speak English, especially when you go over to their country. So, but yeah, I think obviously the fact that when I got in contact with you guys and you were like, well, we'll have a FaceTime call. I was just like, oh, all right. And I kind of, at first I was like, I don't know what to expect. Is it going to be like a bit of a language barrier? But obviously the fact that you guys all have that heritage is massively important. So
yeah, it is. Like, all of us in the company are like half English, half Turkish or half Scottish. And like we have Irish that works.
So you're Irish.
I'm actually Irish and English.
Right.
My grandmother is Irish and my grandfather's English.
Right.
So my mum's half too.
So your dad's Turkish.
My dad's Turkish,
Yeah.
So that really helps. So we have the connections back in UK and we know how like British people think, how they feel, what they would want to expect. So we have all of that experience behind us. So it does really help patients.
I think that is the biggest thing, really, because when people come over here, they expect that, and you are coming into a completely different world where people act a certain way, different to the mannerism and the way people expect you to act over in the UK.
True.
And that's a large part as to why some people might be put off.
Yeah.
But having a company that can provide the service as you would expect in the UK is, I think, as a massive bonus, which is why I said to you, I think it's important for you to get that message out there and to ensure that you are stressing on that fact that, hey, we are a company that is almost ran in Turkey. We are based in Turkey, but really we are an English-based company.
True.
So so when it comes to that, that's always massively reassuring to other people.
Yeah, and we've been in this business now for 7 years, I would say. So we do know the negativities that the patients have faced beforehand, you know, even with us or anywhere else. And we know what they expect. And that's why we have put certain services through in our company to make sure that patients don't have that experience again, like getting picked up from the plane door. So when you get off the plane, you're not trying to find the driver, you're not trying to find all the rep, and you're not running around thinking, where should I go? You just get off the plane door and there's someone waiting for you and they just take you around and fast track you from passport control.
That was actually really funny because, so, you know, Becky, she got ill. She got really ill. And so we went out on Saturday. And, I mean, you know, who would have thought, oh, you know, what can go wrong? Let's go out on Saturday before we go away to Turkey for 2 weeks. But because our tattooist, it was his birthday, and he was like, oh, let's all go out. And we were like, well, we can't really miss it. So we went out. We didn't actually stay out too late, but then we got back and I kind of had a bit of a cough. And the next morning we got up, and I was like, maybe it's just hangover or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't usually get hangovers, but I was just like, who knows? And then what ended up happening is on Sunday I was just coughing all day long. She was coughing. We were like, oh, great. And then obviously on Monday we flew in. She's like, I don't feel too great, you know. And then we got on the plane. She fell asleep, and at one point she wakes up. She's like, I think I'm gonna be sick. I'm like,
Oh God, not on a plane.
I was like, no. And then she get up. She was actually sick, and she was, I'm really cold. I was just like, so we get off the plane. She barely got out the plane, and I was like,
Yeah.
I say, great. And then like literally out of the gate, like as you walk out, like I didn't actually expect that there's going to be someone waiting for us right on the, like out the plane door.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when we spoke and you said, oh, you're going to have someone waiting for you at the plane door, I was like, surely that's just going to be outside when you get out the airport.
Yeah.
But no, it was literally just there out of the plane door. And yes, her trying to be sick, like all over the plane. And obviously we've got the guys like trying to pick us up. But the fact that we got the fast track was actually really good, because last time I remember when we flew into Istanbul, or even Olu Deniz, when we come
Yeah.
for our holiday, that was a bit of a nightmare, because we literally had to wait and queue for about 45
Yeah,
minutes
you do. Yeah.
to just get out the passport control. And in the end, what we actually did was we actually went into the Turkish, because you know you got like
Yeah.
for Turkish and for non-Turkish, we were like, it'll be all right. They actually let us out.
Yeah.
So I think that was pretty good. But this time we literally just,
Yeah.
they come in, took us in. Actually, they went over to pick up our bags. They were like, you don't even touch any, and you kind of feel like I'm the one that normally meant to be doing
Yeah.
that. But they obviously did all that for us. Fast track out, and then so that was really good,
Yeah.
especially with the fact that she was ill.
Yeah.
I was really thinking, how are we gonna
Yeah. I
get
mean, like
through?
you guys came to Turkey before, so it's a bit different for you. But some patients have never came here before. Some of them even haven't flew out of UK.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's the first time they're going to fly out, first time fly into Turkey, and they're going to have surgery at the same time. It's a bit frightening, not knowing what's going to happen, where you're going to go. So having that extra service, it really does relax them. They're like, oh, I'm good, I'm in good hands.
yeah.
I don't
yeah.
need to think of anything. You know, that just starts the journey with stress-free, I think.
Do you find quite a lot of people haven't even flown out their own country?
A
Really?
lot.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like especially our sleep patients, because they're actually overweight. Some patients are really closed in because they're not happy with their bodies. They don't really want to go out, and they don't really travel because, as you know, you have a belt on the plane, that
Yeah.
seat belt, and they need to sometimes ask for extended belts.
really. Yeah.
And that is actually causes embarrassment for them.
Embarrassment, stress. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they don't really fly out.
Yeah.
So we do get them a lot, not with our plastics, but with our sleeve patients we do.
Yeah. How often would you say is it like would you say how since obviously with the popularity of the gastric sleeves and that, how often would you say that's quite a common thing to get?
I would
Or-
say like with every 100 patients, I would say 5.
are coming in for a sleeve,
Yeah,
really. So it's that common.
yeah,
Yeah, because you don't really, it's not really a spoken thing. It's kind of an unspoken, like it's not really something people open up about or
No.
want to share about.
no. No, they are lots of our patients don't even tell their parents or their families or their friends. They actually tell it after they lose the weight.
Yeah,
Then they actually say that they had the gastric sleeve. But usually, some patients, don't get me wrong, they're really open like you know.
yeah.
They go on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and they post all of their journey. And
I think it's important just to spread that awareness, because when I went and got my hair transplant and I had so many messages, people were like, "Oh, so good that you're so transparent about it." And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you're gonna see it anyway, because But I think it's important to speak about that, and again, that's part of why people are scared about it, because
Yeah.
the only thing you mainly hear about is the horror stories when someone goes out and gets their teeth done, and they get it, and obviously they get a poor job.
yeah,
What do? The first thing, they go on Instagram or TikTok and they'll say, "Oh, Turkey fucked up my teeth. And it's like, well, no, maybe it's your fault because you didn't look after them properly, or you went to a company that did the job wrong.
Yeah.
But also the fact that the amount of people that have had it done but never spoke about it.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of the kind of the stigma and that comes
Yeah.
from.
Yeah. And you always hear the bad stories. You never hear
True.
the good stories.
Yeah.
You know, you always hear the bad ones first.
Yeah. I think it's just human nature. You can go to a restaurant and you can, there could be 100 good reviews, but you're looking at, right, let me see what the 1-star
Yeah.
review is. It's just the nature. It's just how people, almost like you kind of look for that negativity.
Yeah, you do.
So
Yeah.
it's really, but the amount of people that were like, oh, it's so good that you're so transparent about it. I'm like, yeah, because if I share that with other people, then it might make people more at ease about getting certain procedures done. Because it is, like I said, it is scary. It's and especially now there's so many companies that do it as well.
Yeah, there is a lot.
There are so many companies that do that service. So it just becomes very difficult to navigate where to go, what to do.
Yeah. And complications can happen.
Yeah.
I think it's important how the company deals with it and how they actually protect their patient or look after them. That's the important thing. I think they need to have that aftercare and that backup to make sure if anything happen that they have the service to cover it or to, fix it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of them do promise to fly you back and, fix it. But I think more than anything, people don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't. If I get a problem with my teeth or something like that, I don't want to have to fly back out. Mm-hmm. So the fact that because you've got an arrangement with various different clinics over the UK where if something does go wrong, even if it's something minor, then you can just go out there and they can take care of it for you.
Yeah, we do have a agreement with a clinic in London, and they can go there and they can fix whatever happens. But like with plastics especially, if it's going to be like doing restitching or anything, I would prefer the patient to fly out and the actual surgeon that did perform the surgery to do that.
Yeah.
Rather than anyone else doing it.
A question that, or I suppose a statement that a lot of people make is, well, if you go to Turkey and get something done and you come back and something goes wrong, they can't touch it. Is that true? Or
no, they can touch it. What happens is they basically choose not to touch it.
Right, okay.
That's the problem. Like even with like getting bloods done and everything after sleeve, some GPs are very happy to do it, but some GPs are very negative about it. They don't want to do the bloods, or they do the bloods and they don't want to give the results to the patient, so the patient can send the results to us for their surgeon to check their levels. It's same like if anything goes wrong, they don't want to touch another surgeon's work.
Right.
And sometimes I do get that, to be honest, because if there is a complication and if a surgeon in the UK touches the patient and something goes wrong or it gets worse or something, it could turn on to them.
True.
Too. So at that point, like with stuff like that, I do understand where they're coming from, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that does make sense when you put it like that. But yeah, I think it's more one of these things where people, that's a big worry for people.
Yeah.
Where they go, well, if I get complications, I'm either going to have to fly back or they're not going to touch me. So that's a big scare for people. So obviously having that backup over in the UK that, look, if something does go wrong, we will sort it out for you, is obviously a big, even because likely nothing will happen, but it's just a peace of mind. Just knowing that.
Just knowing that it is like, and the clinic that we have agreement with will touch them.
Yeah.
They won't say, oh, we won't. They will. Whatever's needed, they will do because we have an agreement between us.
Yeah. And how often do you see complications actually do happen? And what are the most common surgeries or procedures that you're likely to run into these problems?
Life-threatening complication is more with sleeve rather than plastics or teeth and everything. And the life-threatening part with sleeve is actually leaks.
Yeah.
And that's basically when they staple the stomach, when they're removing the 80-85%, they staple at the same time. And if they don't staple enough amount of staples, or if they use very cheap equipment and don't use the actual good equipment because it would drop put the prices up for them basically, then you can see leaks. But one of the things that we do is lots of hospitals and surgeons just do a leak test during surgery.
Yeah.
We make sure we have a leak test before they discharge, so we have 2 leak tests done. So we do double check that 100% the patient doesn't have a leak. And leaks can happen afterwards too, especially the first month.
Oh, I was just going to ask that.
Yeah, because if a patient doesn't obey the rules, like the first 2 weeks is liquid, then puree, and then solid. If they have solid food at their liquid stage, they can have a leak. And that is a very, it would be life-threatening too, and it's actually a very, very long procedure to get well again. They would need to have like maybe food tubes through their nose and everything till that leak is healed. They can't actually eat normal food.
Do you think if there's a language barrier to the point where the clinic or the surgery can't explain that well enough to the client, and then they end up making that mistake, whose fault will that be then?
I mean, I think it needs to be like we go through all of that with our patients and we make sure they obey the rules of that. So we actually, our aftercare is really good. We contact our patients, the sleeve patients, especially the first 2 months, we contact them every week. And we have a WhatsApp support group. So we actually see what they're eating, what they're drinking. And if we see something wrong, we directly jump onto them and say, stop, don't do that. And we have it in written form to them. And while they're here in the hotel especially, we go through it with them. So after we do that, if a patient chooses still to skip that stages and don't obey the rules, I think that's more on the patient. But obviously, if we don't explain that, the patient won't have a clue what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I think it's more a 50-50 thing. The company needs to make sure they explain every stage, everything properly to them. And they need to tell them, if you do skip these stages, you will have a leak.
Yeah.
And a leak is this, and this can happen. Sometimes companies don't like to talk about the negativity because it frightens patients, but sometimes we have to frighten them.
Sometimes you have to, yeah. And I think it is, again, accepting that responsibility, but equally so, I think a lot of people, again, they will only speak up if there's a problem.
Yeah.
And, that's kind of half of the issue when it comes to coming over to Turkey and getting anything done. And again, we had a chat about why things are so much cheaper in Turkey. It's not because of the quality of service, but it's the fact that there are external factors that contribute to that. But I still just think people need to focus on spreading that awareness. And I think the media doesn't really help as well, because you see a lot of negativity when it comes to...
I mean, you see more plastic negativities, to be honest. Plastic surgery is more, it's on media, because it's actually with plastic surgery, you don't really have life-threatening complications, but you have wound healing complications. And the wound healing is different with everyone. And some bodies really don't accept plastics. They just react differently.
Right.
With sleeves, it's certain rules, and if you obey that rules, you will be fine. But with plastics, it's totally different. It's like if a patient is not healthy, if they don't eat healthy food, it will affect their wound healing. If they smoke, it will affect their wound healing. There's loads of different things. Like post-sleeve patients heal slower than a patient that hasn't had sleeve surgery. It's all of these different things affect it.
Yeah. What would you say is the most invasive or the hardest to recover from as far as your plastics?
It's tummy tuck.
The tummy tuck.
Tummy tucks are the ones that take longer than anything else, to be honest.
And what's kind of after, if you had to have top 5, what would you say is
I would say tummy tuck, arm lift, then thigh lift, and then I would say facelift.
Facelift?
Yeah.
So what is a facelift?
It's basically, it would just
they cut
They cut basically like from where the ears and the head connect.
Does that not leave scars?
It does a bit.
Right.
It does a bit, but it really depends on how good your surgeon is.
Yeah.
You know, it does. And facelifts are. You need to be very careful at the healing process with that too.
I can imagine.
Because
And what's the easiest ones to recover from? What's the one?
breasts. Breasts
Really?
are really, really easy. Yeah, you don't even have any pain. It's very easy. Lipo is really easy to heal because it's actually no cuts there.
Yeah.
It's just little tiny holes.
Just holes, yeah.
Yeah. So lipo and breasts, I would say, are the easiest to heal from.
Because you used to hear things like, oh, if you go and get your implants done, you can't fly, and there were all sorts of things like that. And I thought that for the longest time as well, because I said to Beck, I said, oh, what was that thing about flying? And she was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I looked it up, and it says, no, there's no issues flying, anything like that.
No, there's nothing like that, no.
Yeah.
They can fly, they can do anything.
Yeah.
They just need to be careful, obviously. The first month, don't lift anything heavy, you know, don't get your arms up very high.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you just need to be careful with your movements.
With your movements, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, sleeping on your front, I think that's quite a
That's another
common one.
thing. Yeah, they shouldn't be sleeping on their tummy with boobs too. They
Right.
need to be fully healed and then
Right, okay.
need to be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, so that's something that's kind of like I've wondered about. Let's say you're someone who's not really got much there.
Yeah.
Can you still get like a size that's a lot bigger than you can naturally hold?
Yeah, there's all different sizes of implants.
So I was in the impression that, let's say, you know, you're naturally size A,
Yeah.
you can't go to an F
Yeah, you
because your
can.
skin won't.
No, they do it. They
Right.
can. But our surgeon basically really doesn't give the option to our patients. What he does is, when they have the consultation face to face, he says, right, I think you should have an implant of this size.
Yeah.
Because he looks at the body shape, and he explains, like, if some patients say, oh, I want a bigger one, and he says it will look awkward.
Yeah.
Because your shoulders are very narrow, your body's narrow, or your body's like, if the shoulders are very not narrow and they have like big shoulders, then he says have a bigger size.
Yeah.
For it to look more symmetric, you know. And
Yeah.
he's really explains, and some patients that have came here and wanted bigger sizes, they're like, oh, okay, I will go what you said. Because when he explains that, they visualize it and they say, yeah, if I have bigger boobs, it's not going to look right.
It will just look stupid. Yeah, and you can get that as well. And there's two types, isn't it? Like, you've got the, like, over the muscle and then under the muscle,
Yeah.
and what would you say is the better option?
They usually go under the muscle
Right.
rather than over the muscle.
Yeah, that looks better. That looks
Yeah.
more natural, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, it's really interesting because I've picked up so many things over the last couple of days that I've been here that
Yeah.
I didn't know beforehand. And again, I think because it's not really spoken about, or you're not really within that industry. And again, like with the tattoo stuff, like it's very much body modifications
Yeah.
and it's appearance driven and it is more or less the same thing, but because it's not really, I think there's a stigma about it and it's like a taboo subject for people to speak about, especially I think with men.
Yeah.
How often would you say you get, or like the proportion from men to women?
Oh, we definitely have more women than men. Like with men, we mainly have them like with hair or teeth. But sleeve surgery, I would say out of 100 patients, we would only have 2 or 3 men that
Really?
come out for sleeve. And plastics, it's very rare.
Yeah.
Very rare.
Yeah. I mean, with men, it's kind of, I think it's starting to become more prominent.
It is.
I think with a jaw shaping or something like
Yeah.
that's a thing now.
Like men really come out more for teeth, hair.
Teeth, hair.
Yeah, stuffs like that more
Yeah.
than anything.
Yeah, I think the hair is a big thing.
Yeah.
I think over in the UK it's still fairly expensive, but they are starting to bring the prices down to a level to where they're competitive with the prices here.
Yeah.
And I don't really know how that would work really, because as we spoke yesterday, it's just the cost of labor, you know, even just taking that into account.
Yeah.
And taking into account all of your kit and all that stuff. So how would that even be justified to be able to?
I mean, I really don't know, to be honest. You know, I mean, I really don't think UK could bring the prices down to the level of us as Turkey. I
No.
really don't think so. I mean, they maybe bring it down a bit, but end of the day, I really don't think they can really get to the same level
Yeah.
as here, because it's the exchange rate too, basically. Like the Turkish money, when you compare it with pounds, there's a huge difference between it.
Yeah.
So even if they drop the money with the exchange rate, still Turkey will be much cheaper than UK.
I mean, even if they were the same price, I would personally rather come to Turkey because I know that this is what Turkey is known for.
Yeah,
You know, it's no different to, you know, for example, you pick a restaurant and it's like, you know that restaurant is known for that type of food.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're not going to go into Domino's and order a burger.
of course.
So it's the same thing. I
Yeah.
think if I know that Turkey is known for that, their surgeons are, you know, they've spent years and years practicing that. They've done it on thousands of patients.
Yeah.
Why would I go to someone in the UK?
Yeah.
And plus, we know what the UK system is for how they're taught and how quickly you can become a doctor. I mean, we were speaking about this the other day, about how long it actually takes you to qualify to be a doctor here.
Yeah, it takes ages. You know, at least 10 years.
Yeah.
It does.
So you don't really get doctors that are unqualified or that are,
No.
you know, and the ones that probably are, they probably get pushed out and
Yeah.
not really.
No. And another thing is, like with surgeries, like we always have patients that had the gastric band and they come here, get the gastric band taken out and have gastric sleeve.
Right.
And when they come here and have the pre-op tests with the gastric sleeve, they're shocked. They're like, we never had anything like that when we were getting our band done. Because usually they get the band done back in the UK,
Yeah.
and it doesn't work, and they've tried to find other solutions.
So
and
what's
they
the
come
difference between a band and a sleeve?
So band is basically, it's a plastic thing that they actually put in.
Tie the stomach.
Yeah, and they tie the stomach. So it's actually a different thing. You put a plastic thing in your stomach, and that makes patients to throw up a lot.
Right.
Because it's something in your stomach that your stomach's not used to. You know, and often, and they fill in the band like every year or every 2 years to make it tighter, because the liquid inside this band actually causes the stomach to get tighter.
Right.
And then when that liquid is finished, they need to refill it in and everything. But after you get the band removed, because eventually you have to get the band removed, that can't stay in your stomach.
Right, so it's not permanent.
No. And when you get it removed, you put the weight back on.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's,
And again,
that
with
is
the
thing.
sleeve, as you explained yesterday, they actually cut the part of the stomach that's responsible for the production of ghrelin.
Yeah.
So actually the hunger, it's still, like they can tie the stomach, but you're still equally as hungry as when
Yeah.
you didn't have it.
Yeah. And with the band, it actually sometimes it's dangerous too, because people really throw up with it a lot. They can't keep down anything.
Right.
And that is not good too, because they need to get food into themselves,
Yeah.
you know, and
So
they
malnutrition is
yeah.
a big problem there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is again, from things I've heard and from people I've spoken to, they said, "Oh, I've gone and had that done, and I'm struggling to get protein, and I'm struggling to get my micronutrients, I'm struggling to get vitamins and things like that. I'm starting to get hair loss." So obviously, I think educating and teaching people how they can make
Yeah.
sure that they're still having a healthy lifestyle
Yeah.
after something like that is massively important, and it's
Yeah.
not really spoken about.
No. I mean, the first month is the hard month.
Yeah.
Because with sleep, because the stomach is very small now, it's very hard to get all of that thing into you. Like, they need to drink 1.5 liters of water a day. They need to have 60 to 80 grams of protein a day. They need to have their vegetables, fruit to get the vitamin into them. So at first month, it's very hard to aim all of that. But afterwards, patients then get used to their new stomach, and they
Yeah.
know how much they can eat, how much they can consume, and they need to eat often but small amounts.
Small
They
amounts.
just need to get used to that. It's getting used to that habit is the hardest more than anything.
Yeah, and I think you find a lot of people that are so overweight, they end up, they try and almost like, they're quite delusional about the fact that they do eat, but they try and claim like they don't.
Yeah.
And you know, there are actually studies with that where
Yeah.
they've obviously conducted studies where they'll record people on cameras and you know, they'll say, right, this is what you're declaring, this is what you've obviously put on your journal that you've eaten, given an account of your eating food diary,
Yeah.
but actually have gone and eaten way more than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like-
That's another thing too. Like patients, sometimes when they say I'm not losing weight, and you can stall in gastric sleeve, and that's very normal. It can happen. Some weeks you won't lose, but some weeks if you don't lose in pounds, you can actually lose in inches.
Yeah.
So we always say measure yourself too. Don't just go on scales, measure too, because you could be losing inches. But some weeks none of that happen, and it's very normal. But if it carries on too long, then we would need to look into their diet. And we try to get a diet plan out of them, and some of them are like, oh, I eat this. They actually don't write a full diet, their daily plan, what they have eaten. So we keep pushing and saying, right, for the next 3 days, we want you to write every single thing that you have eaten.
Yeah.
And then when they really write it, then we pick on it. Like we say, look, this is too much on carbs. You're having too much carbs. You're not having a protein. You're not drinking enough water. And water is the biggest thing to lose weight.
I mean, hydration, and that's one of the biggest things. It's like, but trust me, I have to, and I've dealt with this for years and years and years, because that was kind of my full-time job before all the social media stuff. It was, you know, coaching athletes and lifestyle clients for weight loss and obviously looking better. And that was the thing, like they'll have a week where they're like, oh, I haven't lost, and I'm like, that's okay. Just because you haven't lost doesn't mean that you haven't lost. You know, as long as you've stuck to the diet plan and you've actually done everything you should have done, you've done your cardio, you know, we wait a little bit, because sometimes your body is going to fluctuate. Even factors like depending on what time you weigh yourself. You know, sometimes you might have a meal at 10 o'clock at night, as opposed to you normally having that meal at 8 o'clock, and you wake up the next morning and you're heavier and you're like, oh, I've gained weight because of that meal. You're like, no, you haven't gained weight because of the meal, but it's the fact that you've weighed yourself maybe earlier on than you normally would. You've eaten your last meal. Sleep is another factor that a lot of people neglect as well. And again, it's just understanding that. I think people just generally don't have a good understanding of energy balance.
No.
Because again, you know, if you are in a caloric deficit, i.e. you're eating less than you're burning, then you're gonna be losing weight. So,
and another thing that they do is like, oh, I just eat one meal a day. How do I not lose weight? But that's not good either. Because you're, again, especially with gastric sleeve, when you have one meal a day, you're not getting enough protein in you. You're not getting enough vitamin. You're not getting the things that you should get in your body daily. And the metabolism just automatically goes down. It doesn't work fast. So it's important that you do actually get enough thing in your body that it needs, so it can actually burn fat.
How many people do you think actually lie about what they eat? Because, you know, a lot of people, I used to get this quite a lot, when you'll know that people have cheated on their diet, because you're like, what I'll tend to do in those times is I'll get people to weigh themselves every single morning. And that's how you catch them out, because it's like, you know, let's say they're good on their diet for 3 days, and then let's say you're 80 kilos, then on a Monday, on a Tuesday at 80.2, maybe on a Wednesday you're like 79.8, and then on Thursday morning you're like 82 kilos, and you think, so how do you gain 2 kilos overnight? And again, you could just see, you know, they've gone out and had obviously an off-plan meal that's not on their diet, maybe like a pizza or something. All that salt, you know, it just causes massive amounts of water retention, and you can kind of just catch them out that way. What percentage of people do you think lie about what they're eating or underreport?
I mean, I would say with gastric sleeve patients, that's a bit different, rather than dieting. Because when people diet, I think they would be lying more about it, because it's just like, oh, it's just a one-off thing. You know, they look at it like that. But with the gastric sleeve patients, we do have people that lie, and we do catch them out. I would say 20% of them do lie. But the rest actually openly say that they have eaten the wrong things. Most of our patients do say that. Like, they really open about water. They say, I haven't drank enough water this week.
What do you say to people when they say about the water being a big problem? Like, how do you go around that? Because obviously you're not allowed fizzy drinks.
I mean, with the water, I actually asked them if they're having like plain water, And are they usually okay with plain water? Like, I'm not. Like, I can't drink plain water all day. Like, 2 liters for me is impossible. So I understand where they're coming from. So I always advise to have like sugar-free squash. That's counted as water intake too.
Yeah.
And protein water. And protein water is good because they're having protein and water at the same time. So I try to get them to have that too, and then balance it out with water.
Yeah, that's one thing that people, again, fluid. This is the key. It's fluid, not just water. It doesn't mean you got to drink bottled water or tap water. You know, you can, you know, and again with people that diet, I always usually say anything that's within kind of 10 calories per, you know, drink is okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. But yeah, a lot of people just tend to struggle with that. And usually what I say to people is I'm like, look, it's just a habit that you need to build. So the way I say is, look, just when you wake up, fill up a pint of water, just down it.
Yeah.
You know, I said, just do that. And then they're like, oh, actually, okay, that's fine. And if you can actually stay consistent with that, pint of water, 500 ml, that's out of the way as soon as you get up. Yeah, so...
And I always say, like, have a bottle with you all day.
Yeah.
Every day. And even just sip on it. You know, you need it, but we say that, but even I don't do it. But, you know, that's the thing to get out from it. You know, you need a bottle in your hand all day, so you just sip, sip, sip.
Yeah. Yeah, I do find, I mean, I used to get like 8 liters of water a day easily.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was kind of like but that's kind of the norm, because especially when you're like back in my kind of peak bodybuilding days, it's, you kind of need to do that.
Yeah.
Because you're so heavy and you're constantly, like, your metabolism's constantly overturning, so you're constantly hot, your body's sweating, you're pushing out so much fluid that you really need to replace that water. And you kind of feel like you need it, and it's easy to get it in. But for people that are normal people, I can see why they struggle.
Yeah, like, I struggle because I drink lots of coffee.
Yeah.
And I know that's my
That's
thing.
your fluid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know because I drink a lot of coffee, I don't drink water.
Yeah.
You know, and try to fix it, but it is hard. So I get when patients say I can't drink enough water. I really understand them because I'm the same.
Yeah, yeah. No, but yeah, no, I mean, that's really some really interesting stuff that we've kind of gone over. I do want to see you guys carry on with the, you know, the health cast. I think it's going to be interesting to kind of hear more about certain things that aren't really spoken about, you know, certain treatments and the aftercare. I think the aftercare is going to be a big part in what you can.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about the aftercare a lot at the podcast. We really are.
I'd like to kind of see more guests coming on, and that will be
that will be really good.
That will be really interesting. So, and again, like I said, anytime you might want me to jump on and just, you know, we can have a chat about anything like that. I can always, like, we could do a Zoom.
Yeah.
I can jump on and we can speak about certain things. But yeah, or any questions that I might have. But so look forward to getting my teeth done tomorrow.
Yeah, excited.
And So yeah, I mean, as we spoke about like before, it's like it's important to make sure that you don't do it so it looks stupid.
Yeah.
You want to do it so it looks as natural as possible. So that is my goal as well. I don't want it to look...
Next week we can do another one and we could show your teeth to people.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think people on Instagram, that's what they've been asking quite a lot to see them. So yeah, but no, really good. So be seeing more of that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for joining us.
Very welcome. All right, I think